Nama Shrishtam Manamapi Vishachiputam Atasupam Rupam Tasthagajamuri Purim Maturim Koshvatim Radhakundamagibaram Ahoradkamharvasam Prapto yasya pratikpaya Shri Gurum tam natosmi Purave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Ananda Leela Maya Vigrahaya Hema Bhakti Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya
Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste
Sham Sundar Shikandashi Snahas Murali Manora Radhikaras Kumama Kripanidhe Supriya Chana King Kurim Kuru Tavaivasmi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tayavina Tivikyaya Devi Tam Nama Chanakikam. First of all, I offer my heart like flower petals, thousands and thousands of times, as an offering at the feet of my Holy Master, my spiritual Guru. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Stotara Satasisima Rupanugacharya Varya Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami. Secondly, I bow down with great honor at the feet of my Guru's Guru and to his Guru and his Guru and all the great spiritual masters by whose unconditional compassion and diligent endeavors the transcendental knowledge of Bhakti Yoga descends from ancient times until this world on this very day. What I propose to share with you this evening is not my creation, my creativity. It's not the product of my meager intellectual abilities, but rather it is an eternal, transcendental knowledge revealed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of all existence. See, Krishna. Krish means existence. Not a part of existence, or 50% of existence, not even 99% of existence. Krish means all existence. So that includes all of us too. We are not and cannot and can never be separated from God. Only we can have the mistaken perception or misconception that we are separated from God. But God is all existence. And I'm not speaking about pantheism, that the entire universe is identical with the Supreme Being, but rather panentheism. Panentheism means that yes, the entire universe is identical with the Supreme Being, and the Supreme Being is also more than that. There is identity. There is no difference between cause and effect. So Krishna is the cause and this world is the effect. But since the entirety of the cause does not transform to become the effect, therefore this world exists, is identical with the Supreme Being, and the Supreme Being is also much more than that. Krish means existence. When we feel ourselves disconnected from that totality of existence, when we feel ourselves being a fragmented part, moving around with so many other fragmented parts in a random chaos called life, this vision is called Pritagdarsha, a vision of separateness. So spiritual life is about removing the Pritagdarsha, the vision of separateness, so that our consciousness can become connected with our source, and by being connected to our source and the cause of all existence, automatically we become connected with everyone and everything. So this is the meaning of Krish. And Krish also means Karshati. He draws towards himself. That Supreme Being draws all of us towards himself by beauty. We are all attracted to beauty. If there's a crowd of 100 people and one person in that crowd is exceptionally beautiful, you won't see the others. Your eyes will just go directly to that one person. Without thinking, it's spontaneous. So Krish means beauty. Compelling attractiveness. And Na means Ananda, joy, devotion. We are attracted by beauty, but sometimes beautiful things, they promise joy but give the opposite result. Just like the moth sees the flame, thinks, oh, how sparkly and wonderful. But when he flies to the flame, then he is destroyed. So we have to discriminate between the temporary, superficial, worldly, material beauty which calls us into the flames, and then we become ruined, and eternal, everlasting, divine, ever-increasing spiritual beauty. So the word Krishna indicates the cause of all existence, who is the entirety of existence and more, who is most beautiful. And when you are attracted to that beauty, you realize Ananda, unlimited joy. That is Krishna. So we are singing this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This method of enlightenment is coming from Krishna himself. Thousands of years ago, when he descended to this earth, he comes every 8,640,000,000 years, not so often. But when he comes, he speaks Bhagavad Gita and inspires the path of bhakti into the hearts of the sages. And then they teach it to their disciples and their disciples, and in this way, through thousands of years, I was fortunate in this life to meet a great teacher in that unbroken gem. And what he gave to me, I am just like a postman delivering to you. You excuse me for sitting up here and not sitting down there. It is not because I am particularly important, but because the message is so important. The message is so important and so essential. So we give the honor to the message. So first I've given pranam to my teacher and to his teacher and all the great saints who have passed down this knowledge. And finally, I want to bow down to all of you, my very dear brothers and sisters. Because you have so kindly come here this evening to inspire me and remind me to speak about the path of Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of divine love. So, where to begin? Our topic for this evening is how to cope with the difficulties and adversities in life. So raise your hand if you have no difficulties in your life. Aha. So that explains why you're all here this evening. The problems of this material existence are like waves in the ocean. If you stand on the shore of the ocean, a wave comes. Then you think, oh, that's probably the last one. It's not going to happen again, is it? So that's basically the mentality of people in general. If I can just get over this wave, everything will be okay. However, the waves of problems in this material world are coming endlessly. So, you have to learn to deal with it somehow or other. So, I can share with you how we in this Vedic culture deal with it. We'll deal with it by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now you may think that that's not a particularly effective way of combating the sufferings of life, but actually it's very effective. In fact, in the Brihad Naradian Purana, it is said, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Vidya Anyata. In this particular epoch, in this era of the development of the universe, this era is in Vedic, by Vedic astrological calculation, is called Kali Yuga. It's a very difficult time, a very materialistic time, and the atmosphere in this age is very antagonistic to spiritual progress. So it began 5,000 years ago, and this difficult time, it will be over soon. It will be completed after 427,000 years. So, but I'm hoping that none of you will be around by then, by the end of this Kali Yuga. But we've all been through so many ages, so many eras. We've been taking birth and struggling and dying and taking birth and again and again and again. Though we may not have remembrance of that, but if you practice meditation, you'll be able to see, because all those experiences are stored in your subconscious mind as sanskar, impressions in the chitta. This is a fact. So in the Brihad Naradiya Purana, it is said that in this difficult age, there are many different types of spiritual practice, but they are not powerful, they are not effective enough to counteract the difficulties that we face. In previous ages where the atmosphere was more pure, the silent meditation was effective. And also in those days people lived for a very long time. But in this current age, it's not effective enough. So the Puranas say, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Only the chanting, the loud singing, the actual articulation of the divine syllables, of the names of the Supreme Being, that will be more than sufficient to destroy all the reactions of your past karmas, to eradicate the darkness within the core of the heart and reveal the nature of your soul, and also ultimately to give a vision, a darshan of the Supreme Being, Sri Krishna, and awaken ecstatic love. So it's not just good enough to get out as mukti, moksha, liberation, nirvana, only to transcend the problems. But what we're really looking for is love. And the joy that love brings. So we have two options. We can try to cope with the difficulties of life with a material solution, such as what? What do people use to cope? Prozac? Ganja? Budweiser? The pressure is on. In this age, the pressure is on. Unless someone has a sadhana, a strong daily sadhana, then you will find yourselves overpowered by various addictions. You see? T is nodding his head. He's here, he's helping the people. Have a sadhana, yoga sadhana, to rise to the higher vibration of sattva gun. If you don't have a daily sadhana, you'll be crushed by the wheels of time. Very difficult. So the material solutions, literally solutions, actually they don't solve the problems. They make them get worse. They exacerbate the problems. So that's not the right direction. We want a genuine remedy, a real solution. And that comes in the form of bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga, it can be practiced very easily. There are many different types of practice, but specifically the main practice is to absorb the consciousness in the mantra. Now, many people, they hear this, okay, maybe it's okay, maybe not. Faith is not so strong. Why? Because we don't have a divine experience. Our thinking is conditioned. And so we're incapable of properly evaluating the value of this mantra, Hare Krishna. Just like once in India, there was a wealthy man and he purchased a huge house, like a palace. And it was old, it needed renovating. So he brought in some workers, and the workers were digging and reconstructing the walls. And one worker, when he was digging, he found some shiny stone. Oh, but that's pretty. Maybe my boss, his son will like to play with this. So he went to his boss and said, well, I was digging in your house, I found this. Perhaps you can give it to your son to play with. So that wealthy man said, oh, thank you. And yeah, here, have 100 rupees. And gave him 100 rupees. That labor was very satisfying. He was very happy. So then that wealthy man, he took that shiny stone and he went to a local jeweler. He was in Hyderabad. And he went to the jeweler. The jeweler looked at it. He examined it. He said, you know, this is worth $500,000. He was amazed. $500,000? Really? The jeweler said, yes. If you like, I'll buy it from you. Cash. So then that wealthy man said, no, I think I'll keep it. He kept it. Then he traveled to South India. He went to Bangalore. And he went to a specialist there, a jeweler. He said, can you evaluate this for me? So then a jeweler, he was examining it. This is very special. This is worth $1 million. I'll buy it from you. Cash, if you like. He said, no, I think I'll keep it. Then he went to Bombay. Now it's Mumbai, it was Bombay then. So he went to Bombay and took it to a specialist there. The specialist looked. This is worth $5 million. So, each person made a different evaluation. The laborer, he was quite pleased with his 100 rupees. But then a specialist, he said so much. Actually, he knew it was worth much more. But he was lying. He told a low price so he could buy it for himself and make a profit. The next one also. Finally, he got the actual value of the substance. So, because people in general, they are not specialists in the spiritual science. Their consciousness is absorbed in this bag of meat, and they're unaware even of the presence of their own soul. So because they're not specialists, they're incapable of evaluating when someone comes to give them something valuable. And sometimes a person may be saying, oh, chant Hare Krishna. This is very good. But they themselves, they don't realize the value of it. They have not realized the value of this mantra. And so then they will give very cheaply. That's all. So, the Vedas say, Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Puna Shuddho Nityamukto Bhinatham Nama Namina. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the name of Krishna, is Chintamani. A Chintamani is not just a diamond or a sapphire. A Chintamani is a mystical jewel that can fulfill any desire you want. It is unlimitedly powerful to give anything you want, anything in the universe, and anything beyond the universe. This jewel of the Hare Krishna mantra can give to you. So if you have some material desires that you cannot give up, anyway, chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This jewel will fulfill them. Actually, if you have a desire, it cannot be fulfilled unless that is in your karma, that it will be fulfilled. Unless it's in your astrological chart that it will come to you, it will not come. But when you come in contact with the divine name of the Supreme Lord, this is outside of the jurisdiction of karma. When you begin to chant in the Krishna Kirtan, now you are disengaging from your destiny into a free realm. And even whatever worldly desires there are, Krishna will manage it and fulfill it quickly. And in such a way that you'll think, I really didn't need that. And just let go and move on. Give up all attachments. And we develop then a higher taste. So, this is the thing, that we don't understand the value of this name, this mantra. If we could appreciate really the value of this mantra, then there's no doubt about it. You would prioritize your meditation over everything else. Instead of sleeping for 8 hours, eating for 3 hours, watching TV for 4 hours, playing Xbox for 5 hours, and chanting for 10 minutes. Or you would chant for 20 hours. and sleep for 3 hours. And then 1 hour quickly to take a shower and have a snack. Like that. Yeah? If we could really understand, if we could really properly evaluate the power of this divine mantra, then our life would completely change. And this is why it is very important. See, one saint, Jagannatha Pandit, he said, Sadhu Sangha Krishna Naam Ai Matra Chai Sangsara Janit Ar Kaun Vastu Nai. I only want to chant this holy name of Krishna and be in the company of sadhus, sadhu sangha, the association of saints. Because in the matter of traversing the ocean of illusion, the ocean of material existence, these are the only effective remedies. These are my real friends. And the reason is because only when we come into sadhu sangha, the association of saints, then they give an impression into our hearts about the value of the meditation. And each time we associate, then we realize that it's a little bit more valuable than we thought it was. And slowly, our priorities and our commitment to daily meditation, daily devotions, chanting the Maha Mantra, this grows and grows and grows until our practice reaches a critical mass, which is necessary to make a breakthrough. We want to make a breakthrough. Not only sitting, next arms, like this, and falling asleep, and looking at the clock. No. We want to make a breakthrough where our consciousness pierces the coverings of material existence. Where we hear the sound of the divine river Jamuna flowing, and Krishna playing his flute, and all his associates dancing in ras. We want to make a break. But for that, our daily sadhana will have to come to that critical mass. That is very deep absorption every day. Step by step it will come. So, our main problem is that we have a misidentification. And this is why we experience problems, why we experience suffering. Because our abhiman, our identity, is firmly rooted in this physical body. So, I have a friend. He's a British guy, but he lives in Australia. And he was telling me something, his history, how he came to the path of bhakti. When he was a young man, he's quite old now. When he was young, he worked in the merchant navy. So he was traveling around the world on ships, and his particular occupation was he was a communications officer. So you can tell how old he was, because back then the communication was done by Morse code. Dot, dot, dash, dash. So even now he's old, he can still speak in fluent Morse code. One day he came up to me and said, dot, dot, dash, 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 dot, 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 dot. I looked at him, he said, that means, hello brain. In Morse code. So one day, they were sailing, and they came upon a terrible storm. And the ship was being thrown from side to side, and they were really in distress. So that time, he had to send out a message to let some rescue services know where they are and their location, and perhaps they might need to be rescued. So he was on the ship, and the ship was rocking from side to side, and he was trying to do like this. But somehow or other, the mechanism, it was broken, and there was a problem with electricity, that he had his hand on one part and he was touching another part, and the current of electricity went through him, and gave him a really powerful electric shock. So, and it was so powerful that his hands fused to the mechanism. Immediately he was unconscious, but he was still standing there like this and fused to the mechanism. Luckily the captain was just nearby, and he was very quick thinking, and he was also a good rugby player. So he tackled him. You know, he ran and knocked him to the ground, and it separated him from the mechanism. So then he hit the ground, he was still unconscious. However, he became conscious, but not in his body. He was floating near the ceiling, and he was looking down. And he could see his body lying on the ground. And he could see the captain desperately trying to resuscitate him. So the captain was pumping his heart and trying to get his breathing going for a few minutes. And then suddenly he felt himself back in his body, and he opened his eyes. He said, wow. And he was very grateful to that captain. And later he told the captain, he described exactly what the captain was doing when he was apparently unconscious, but he was seeing it from another angle of vision, another vantage point. Now, after that, many years went by. And one day, he met some practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, some devotees of Krishna. So they were speaking to him and telling him about the Bhagavad Gita and explaining that the first thing you have to know in spiritual life is that you are not this physical body. And he went, wow! And his mind raced back to that day when he was actually disconnected from his body. And then he realized, it's a fact. It's true. But how did he realize it? He heard it by hearing from a person who had some realization. Because the power of ahankar, the power of ego, the power of avidya, ignorance, maya, illusion, is so powerful that even though he was disconnected from his body, he experienced that he was not the body, but as soon as he was back in the body, it didn't even register, maybe I'm not my body. No doubt came in his mind. He was completely convinced that he was still his body, even though, so that makes no sense. It's not logical. But that's the power of avidya, the power of ignorance, the power of illusion, that even if we logically analyze all the details, just like any scientist, chemist, neurologist, psychologist, they all try to analyze the mind and the brain, but no one has a theory of consciousness. No one. No one. The psychologists give so many models for how the mind works or might work. And then they think, they attribute this to the brain functions. But there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever. What to speak of evidence? There's no mechanism, there's no theory, there's not even a hypothesis how your brain, which is predominantly water, becomes aware of itself. Like, they just assume that's the way it must be. So don't think just because people are rational on a certain level of dealing with whatever, the economy, or mathematics, or science, that they're actually rational on a deeper level. No. Very, very irrational on that deeper level. Coming close, when we start to get closer and closer to the heart, everything gets all primal and just instincts are flowing. There's no sense to it, even in the most educated persons. So that was his experience. Even though he was separated, he experienced, I'm not the body, but it did not register with him. And this is why it's very important to have sadhu sangha, the association of saints who have realization. When we hear their powerful vibration of their words, then our spiritual intelligence becomes invigorated, and the vivek, discrimination, comes. Vivek, discrimination. Why? Because the sound that comes from the lips of an enlightened being is not material. In this world, there are so many elements. The grossest element is earth, these solid substances. And then you have water, the liquid substances. And then fire, kind of gaseous but with form. And then air, gaseous but without perceivable form. And then space, which accommodates the movements of all the other elements. So this earth, water, fire, air and space, they're the 5 gross elements. And space, it's called a mahabhuta, a gross element in Sanskrit. But for us, when we think, space is the most subtle thing that we can think of, and we think it's nothing. In ancient cosmologies, they would call it ether. It was actually an element. So in the Vedic culture, it's also, space is also an element. In relativity also, space is a substance, it can bend. Right? But then the next element is the element of mind. The element of mind is finer than space. That's how you can have so many thoughts, but your head never becomes full. There's always room for another thought in that head, right? So the mind is finer than space. And the buddhi, the intelligence, is finer than the mind. And ego is even finer than that. So because the ego is finer than both the mind and the intelligence, the mind and intelligence cannot understand the ego. Can't figure it out. What is this ego? I don't know. Who's this I who doesn't know? I can't go there. Just don't have the facilities to go there. Finer than the ego is a chitta. Chitta is the finest substance of the subtle body. And finer than that is Atma, the self. So all these coverings are material, but the Atma is spiritual, transcendental and part of God. And the real home of the Atma is not in the material atmosphere, but in the spiritual atmosphere. So there in the spiritual world, there are the spiritual elements. See Krishna's beautiful form, His qualities, His associates, His eternal Leela, the pastimes. But the finest thing in the spiritual world is the sound of Krishna's name. Krishna. Spiritual sound. It's the finest element of the spiritual world, and it includes everything else. There's nothing missing in that. So when an enlightened spiritual master gives us mantra, he's not giving us this material sound, which is a gross element. It's a subtle cause of space, actually. So the Guru does not give us this material sound, he gives us the finest vibration of the spiritual world and puts that in our right ear. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
And it's alive. Krishna himself and the entire spiritual world goes into your heart. Now, the trick is, you have to reproduce that. It will come out again. And that's what the daily sadhana is, the daily practice. Is that we try to repeat the syllables of the mantra in a mood of service, so that the divine, living, complete, transcendental mantra which Guru has put in our heart will gradually do spurti, manifest of his own sweet will by causeless mercy and reveal to us, destroy the ignorance of the material world and reveal to us the spiritual dimension. This is the meaning of mantra meditation and why it is the way. And really, In this age, it is only method powerful enough to counteract the currents of material energy which are flowing in this atmosphere and bring us to spiritual perfection. Oh, we mentioned Vivek, discrimination. The vision of Viveki, one who has discrimination, has been described in the Yoga Sutras. You remember? Dukam eva sarvam vivekinaha. There in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali said, Dukam eva sarvam vivekinaha. For a person who has developed fine discrimination, everything in this plane is dukh, suffering. It's all suffering. So you can take your own pulse and see whether or not you are really a yogi. If you are really a yogi, then you look and you see all is suffering. Why? Because suffering is suffering. And the material enjoyment makes you become attached. And those things to which you become attached are taken away by time. And then you suffer more. And so there are two modes of life in this world: suffering and preparation for a larger suffering. Equal happiness. So, but stubborn, we were discussing that deeply, on a deep level, we're not really rational. We're not rational beings. Because sattva, which gives the clarity, is not so prominent. So Patanjali said those who are really situated in a high level of sattva, have discrimination, they can see what's happening now, and they also see the outcome of what's happening now. Because the chain of cause and effect is inescapable by worldly activities. So in the commentary on this sutra, the disciple of Patanjali, his name is Vyas, in his Vyas Bhasya, in his commentary, he gave a very interesting history. He said once there was a great yogi named Jaigishavya. So Jaigishavya had developed a very high level of concentration. So he could do samyam. Samyam means, in yoga you have first yam, niyam, then asanas, postures, then pranayama to extend the breathing cycle, and then pratyahara to withdraw the senses from the objects, and then you can do dharana, concentration, and then dhyan, meditation, and in the end samadhi. So these last three, dharana, dhyan and samadhi, taken together are called samyam. So when the mind is concentrated, it becomes very powerful like a laser, and extraordinary capabilities develop. So in modern society, the whole atmosphere and social media and everything is designed to give everyone attention deficit disorder. But if you can, by daily sadhana, compose the mind that the stages of dharana, concentration, meditation and trance take place, then when the mind is focused on an object, some very extraordinary things happen. Those objects become reproduced in the consciousness in their entirety, and you can know all about them. So this is a way of acquiring knowledge called yogaja. Knowledge which it doesn't come from empirical investigation, but by meditative investigation. So, Jaigishabhya had such concentration that he could turn his consciousness onto his own chitta, onto his own subconscious mind, and examine all his samskars. Samskars means impressions. So every moment of your life you're seeing, you're hearing, you're experiencing different things. And it's all being recorded in your chitta. So even though you may not be able to remember, because it goes into the subconscious mind, but it's there. So because he could do samyam on the samskars, the impressions in the chitta, he could look inside and he could see the record of his previous life and the life before that and the life before that. And he was so adept at this that rumor had it that he could see all of his lives for the past 10 cosmic cycles. So a cosmic cycle is more than 8 billion years. So more than 80 billion years he could see every single life in his meditation. So the rumor spread everywhere that he had this ability. So there was another yogi, his name was Avatya Muni. So Avatya Muni, he was a videha. That means he didn't have a gross body. He only had a subtle body, and he could travel here and there at will by that subtle body. But he wanted to meet with Jaigishabhya. So for that, he appeared in this plane, he manifested a gross body, and he approached Jaigishabhya and bowed down to him. He said, "Oh Sadhu, oh Mahatmaji, great soul, I have heard your astonishing achievements in meditation, and I want to pose a question to you. You can remember all of your lives for much more than 80 billion years. So please tell me, in your experience, did you experience more happiness or more distress?" Without hesitation, he said, it was all distress. It's all suffering. He didn't stop to blink. He didn't have to think about it, wake up. He didn't even give a percentage. Like 80% suffering, 20%. Dukam meva sarvam vivekinaha. It was all suffering. So then, Avatya Muni, he was astonished. He said, but throughout all of those millions of lifetimes, you were able to maintain yourself in a very high level of sattva gun. You avoided tamas, the lower destructive energy which is completely suffering. Even you avoided rajas, the mode of passion, where there's kind of some enjoyment, sense gratification, fame, recognition, worldly power. Even these things you avoided. And you kept yourself in sattva gun for all of these millions of lifetimes. You have been a celestial being on the higher planets. Om Bhur Bhuvaha. Bhur is this planetary system. The next one, Bhuvaha. Swaha. Mahalok, Janalok, Tapalok. So there are higher planets. And he'd been on those higher planets in a very rarefied atmosphere. So he said, all that time, you were sometimes in the form of a human being, sometimes in the form of a celestial being. And from your sattva gun, also you had some control over prakriti. That means you had siddhis, mystic powers. You know, yogis don't have to go shopping. They can just practice it, just reach out and take anything. Want some grapes from Italy? Okay, just practice it. So many mystic powers he had then. So Avatya Rishi said, being even among the devatas, the celestial beings, and having these mystic powers, did you not derive any happiness from that? He said, no, it was all suffering. Why? Because even though the peace, the contentment, and the mystical abilities which arise from sattva gun are happiness in comparison to the suffering of just running around here and there trying to taste things and have sex with them. Which comes from the mode of passion and ignorance. So relative to that, it's happiness. But relative to being liberated completely. It's all suffering, because even Sattva Gun is part of Prakriti, the mature energy. Whereas the soul is not part of Prakriti. Binna Prakriti astadha apariyayam itastamyam prakritim vidime param. See, Krishna said there are the 8 elements of Prakriti, but superior to that is the Atma, the soul, is beyond that. So in any way the soul is in contact with the mature energy. Even though it may be relatively happy compared to another situation, it's really suffering. So in Gita, Sri Krishna said, Sukha sangena badnati, jnana sangena chanaga. Just as Tamagun binds you to addictions, laziness and madness, just as Rajagun binds you to endless worldly desires, so similarly Sattvagun binds you to an artificial sense of contentment and a relative feeling of being wise compared to the people who are not so wise. But it's also, it's like one person is in iron shackles, one person is in silver shackles, and one person is in gold shackles, but they're all bound in the shackles. So, therefore, it's necessary to have a daily spiritual sadhana, so that our body identification, mature ignorance, all become dissolved. In fact, Bhakti Yoga dissolves, digests the Shukshma Sharira. You have a gross physical body, and within that there is a psychological, it's also material, but subtle psychological body called Shukshma Sharira, composed of mind, intelligence, ego and chitta. So Bhakti Yoga digests the subtle body, because the soul only identifies with the gross physical body due to the covering of the subtle astral body, the psychological body. So once the astral body, the psychological body is dissolved, even though the physical body is still here, you are Jivan Mukta. That means liberated while still alive in this world. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there it is said, Jarayati asu ya kosham nirginam analo yataha. It means that just as when you eat food, then your stomach digests the food, but without your conscious volition. After eating, you don't sit there and think, okay, here comes some carbohydrates, release the enzymes. You don't do it consciously. It all goes on by itself. So in the same way, when you engage in Bhakti Yoga, chanting the names of Krishna, worshipping the deity of Krishna, hearing the pastimes of Krishna, serving the devotees of Krishna, serving under their guidance, then automatically your astral body, psychological body is digested. And you'll see the influence of the worldly identification just wane and disappear. Then you are Jivan Mukta. Everyone will see you are sitting here, meditating. But you will see, oh, Kaloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world, and experience that, even in this life. So, now the problem is, we try to do the right thing in life. Let's say you say, it's January the 1st, New Year's resolution. And you make a list of your New Year's resolutions. From today, I will chant so many malas, and I will only eat prasad, honor prasad which has been offered to Krishna. I will not take any whatever forbidden substances, rajasic substances like garlic and onions. So whatever, so you can make so many vows, but then what happens? By January the 4th, it's all over. Everyone's been there, right? Everyone's been there. Right? Well, why is that? Have you ever wondered why? Well, it just so happens that Arjuna has asked the same question in the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna said, Athakena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha anichan apivashneya baladiva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, I was wondering, please tell me, what is it that engages us by force in perhaps unvirtuous activities, or not perfect standard of activities, or sinful activities? What is it that pushes us to do that, even against our will, even against our New Year's resolutions?" Anicca, anicca means desire. Anicca, I don't want to do it. But I end up doing something that I don't want to do, and not doing what I said I wanted to do. Baladiva means as if by force. Can you tell me what is that? So, this question is very deep. If you analyze it, it's a very deep question. The components of the question are as follows. We have the sanskars, impressions of our previous activity in the subconscious mind. Now, desires, essentially, when we desire to do something, that's not really the manifestation of our free will and independence. There's an illusion of independence. There's an illusion of expression of free will. What's really happening when you wake up in the morning and think, I want to go to the bar. Or I want to go to the cinema. Or whatever it is. I want to go to McDonald's. Whatever. So, you didn't just create that thought. It was an impression that was already there in the subconscious mind of a past activity. From the subconscious mind, it appeared in your conscious mind. But because whatever's going on in there, we think, oh, that's me. So when that echo of a past activity came into the conscious mind, we just go with the flow. We go along with it. Now, Arjuna's question is this, because he already knows this stuff. He already knew that whatever we're doing, we're actually more or less choosing what we like and what we dislike is just the echoes of past activities. He knew that. So the essence of his question is this, that Paramatma, the super soul, one form of God himself, is also present in the heart. And Paramatma empowers, invigorates the mind and the pran. Without the presence of God in the heart, no one can do anything. But the Paramatma, the form of God present in everyone's heart, will never inspire you to do wrong things, foolish. He wouldn't do that. So if he's not doing it, then perhaps it's the sanskars. But the problem is this, that the sanskars are inert, inanimate. They're not alive. They're just like pictures. Right? So essentially, a picture of a past experience is coming from the subconscious into the conscious mind. But that picture alone cannot force you to do anything. So, this is the essence of Arjuna's question. God who is present in your heart will not make you do the unmeritorious things, unvirtuous things. And the sanskars which seem to be making you do it are actually inert, so they can't force you either. So what's going on here? So Krishna gives the answer. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna samudbhavaha. Mahashano Mahapatva Vidyana Mihavarinam Avritam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavarina Kamarupena Konteya Dushparena Analena Cha. Krishna said, it is calm lust. But where did that come from? Rajagun, or Rajas, the mode of passion. This Rajagun, yesterday we were discussing about the nature of Maya, is the avidya vritti. It is the avidya function of the material energy. So as soon as we are touched by that creative, that passionate energy, Rajas, then our inherent self-knowledge is now covered by avidya. And then in the state of avidya, we think that this samskar is my own choice, and then we go along with it. The sanskar itself cannot do anything, really. So Krishna said, Apuryamanam machala pratistam samudramapa pravisanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravisanti sarve sasanti apnoti nakama kami. That just as rivers flow from all directions and enter into the ocean, but the ocean remains within its boundary. So in the same way, that person into whose mind many samskars are appearing, many desires are appearing, but he does not change his boundary. He stays within himself, satisfied within himself, without any effort to carry out the prompting of the mind. That person attains peace, not the person who follows every provocation that appears in the mind. So, our problem is not the sanskars. Our problem is avidya, the influence of Rajagun, the mode of passion that makes us identify with those sanskars. So what is the solution? Patanjali has said, Samadhi Siddhi Ishwara Pranidhanat. The perfection of trance comes from surrender to Ishwara, surrender to God. So the implication of this is that Samadhi is a complete restraint of all the oscillations of the mind, all the rajas, the passion in the mind. So if all that rajas can be nullified by surrender to God, the hidden implication is the cause of rajas is our not being surrendered to God. So Vyas, the disciple of Patanjali, he said, Ishwara Pranidhan means Vishesh Bhakti, intense devotion. So, our indifference, our simply not being bothered, our not caring about the happiness of Ishwara, the Supreme Being, that is the cause of the oscillation of the mind, of the rajas, which brings about avidya, ignorance and body identification. And therefore, the solution to all the stress and all the problems, not only the solution to the problems of material existence, but to the very existence of material existence, is only Vishesh Bhakti, intense devotion. So Krishna is very kind. He descends to this world through the channel of Guru Parampara in the form of Mahamantra. And by taking shelter of chanting and meditating daily. And as you chant, you can remember the beautiful form of Krishna. As the meditation deepens, internally you can serve also. And by this, gradually, tamas goes away, rajas goes away, avidya goes away, your subtle body becomes digested, and then the spiritual energy envelops the soul, and you develop your swarup, spiritual identity. You get a divine spiritual body in which to eternally meet with Krishna, serve Krishna, sing for Krishna, be embraced by Krishna. He may kiss you also. Yeah. So, you know, if there was some cream available in the chemist, if you rub this cream on your face, you'll never grow old. How much would you pay for that? How much do you think people would pay for that? It would be a very high price, right? If someone invented that, they would just give it away for free. So much. But by smearing the ointment of love, prem, love for Krishna on the eyes, through the activities of bhakti yoga, the ointment of love is smeared on the eyes, and then the darkness of material vision goes away, and you can see Krishna, and you can have a body which will never grow old, no wrinkles. Spiritual form. How much will you pay for that? It's priceless. You cannot pay. And this is why, in our tradition, we are giving for free.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Only we have to learn to value it. Because in the chanting of the mantra there are some obstacles. They're called aparad. 10 types of offense to the name. So when we don't have the appropriate honor and respect towards the divine mantra, then that mantra withholds its power. So in sadhu sangha, in good association, we learn gradually to understand the true value of this, and then we can experience the power of the mantra. So Krishna is very easy to please. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna said, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhakta prayachati tadaham bhaktuparitam ashnami prayatatmanaha. If you want to do the yoga sadhana of Ashtanga yoga to enter samadhi, you'll have to be alone in a cave somewhere and just practice for decades and decades to attain that perfection. It's not easy, very difficult. If you want to try to develop realization by the performance of fire sacrifices, swaha, swaha, then you have to learn so many skills, how to pronounce the mantras properly and collect all the ingredients for sacrifice. It's extremely detailed and expensive. It's very difficult. But Krishna said, if you just give me, patram means a leaf, offer a leaf, especially a tulsi. Krishna likes tulsi leaves. That's why you have tulsi. If you offer me a leaf, patram, pushpa, a flower. Oh Krishna, Yaswa. If you offer me a flower, if you offer me a little fruit, or even water, these things are available to everyone. Krishna said, I will accept ashnami prayatatma if you give it with bhakti, if you give it with devotion, with dedication. Krishna said, I accept it. So it's not that Krishna is like short on leaves or anything. But he doesn't have any water. Why he's not asking for himself, but he's begging for that exchange. It's an exchange of love. It's an opportunity to express love only. It's the love, the flavor of our love that Krishna is interested in, because he has everything. But until you give your heart, he doesn't have your love. So Krishna says, Ashnami prayatatmanaha. Actually, Ashnami in Sanskrit literally means I eat. I eat. So yes, you can ingest the water, you can ingest the fruit, even the tulsi leaves you can, but the flowers? What is that? That means that if someone has love and they offer a flower to Krishna, Krishna becomes so intoxicated with their love, You may inadvertently eat the flower as well. Not so tasty. So, but Krishna, though he is Ishvara, the controller of everything, but he comes under the control of the love of his devotee. This is, you can see. Have you ever seen a copy of the Bhagavad Gita? Always on the front, it's the tradition that there's a chariot. And Arjuna, the warrior, is on the chariot with his bow and arrow, and Krishna's driving. So even before you open the Gita, the whole teaching is already there on the cover. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but in this case you can. Because on the very front cover, before getting into a whole, jnanic, philosophical, metaphysical discussion of all the different components of reality, just right there on the cover, you see that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, has taken the position of a chauffeur for his devotee. He's driving his devotee's chariot. Why? Because if someone has love for Krishna, then his heart melts and says, how can I serve you? He wants to serve you. So bhakti goes both ways. The devotee has love for Krishna, and Bhagavan Bhakta Bhaktiman. In Srimad Bhagavatam it says, Bhagavan Bhakta Bhaktiman, that Bhagavan is that person who's full of love for his devotee. So anyone can attain perfection through serving and loving Krishna. There's no disqualification. It doesn't matter if you're young, how old you are, how young you are, how educated you are, how stupid you are, how wealthy you are, or whether you're completely poor and poverty-stricken and in thousands of dollars of credit card debt. Whatever you have or you don't have, none of this counts for Krishna. Nothing counts for. The only thing that counts for Krishna is your devotion, that you give your heart. I want to share with you one very beautiful history. Once upon a time, in India, on the western side of India, but he decided that he wanted to go to the Ganges, to Prayag, where the Ganga and the Jamuna, two sacred rivers, meet. And just once in his life he should go there and worship the Ganges, in this holy place. So, you know that the Ganges, all the rivers, they're considered to be like angels. They are the associates of God, and they come into this world in the form of rivers. And so, in India, the Ganges, Jamuna, Saraswati, they're worshipped as being a current of love for the Supreme Being. So by worshipping those angels, they will bless you and you will have devotion to Bhagavan, to Krishna, Lord Narayan or Krishna, whichever form of God that person wants to be dedicated to. So that wealthy merchant, he wanted once in his life to travel very far from the west over to the northeast, and in that sacred place, Prayag, to worship the Ganges. So before he set off, he thought, well, for myself and my associates, we should get some good new shoes. So he went to a cobbler. So one cobbler, he was very old, very, very old, and considered a low caste and low profession because you have to skin the animals and prepare the leather and everything. So he went there to buy some products from this craftsman who works with leather and made shoes. So he told him, he said, you know, I'm so excited that I'm going to, it's for the first time in my life, because at least once I want to do this, I will travel very far away to Prayag, and there in that holy place, I want to worship the Ganges. So that old cobbler, he said, you are so fortunate. You are very fortunate. In my life, I never had the chance to go, and now I'm so old, I'll never get the chance. So, can you just do something for me? If I give you some flowers, some flower petals, can you just take them, and when you're there and you do your puja, please just offer my flowers also to the Mother Ganges. So then that wealthy merchant, he felt pity for him. He thought, oh, this old man, he's so devoted, but he has no chance. It's a small thing I can do. So he kept that in a small bag, those flowers. So, after some time, that wealthy merchant, along with his retinue, with his associates, he set off on the parikrama, the pilgrimage. So he was traveling for many weeks, and finally he arrived there at Prayag. And I don't know if have you ever seen the worship of the Ganges in Haridwar or in Rishikesh or Prayag?
Yeah.
You know how they do it? They have, you're supposed to offer ghee wicks which are lit like a candle, but it's made from cotton soaked in ghee. So they have, generally people have 5 of them and they light them and they go like this and ring a bell. But if you go to Haridwar or Prayag, they have these huge ones with hundreds and hundreds of ghee wicks below the handle and above the handle. And it's so hot, they have to wrap it with a towel. And as they're making the offering, someone's there with a jug of water pouring it onto the hand to just keep it cool. So if you go to these places, this big puja is going on. So this man was very wealthy, and he expended a lot of money. He had so many priests there with big deeps, and someone was ringing the bell because they needed 2 hands to hold the deep. So some people were ringing bells, others were waving the deeps and singing, "Oh Ganga Mata, oh Mother Ganges, we bow down to you. You are devoted to Krishna, please bless us." And they were singing their arti songs. And he had, huge amount of flowers, 1/2 ton of flower petals, and they threw them in and just covered the surface of the water of the Ganges. And they did a very grand puja with so many musicians, so many singers. It was quite spectacular. And then in the end, when all the puja, the worship was over, then he bowed down. "Oh, Ganga Mata, my dear Mother Ganges, my pranams to you." And he bowed down. And now that desire, that ambition he had in his life, it was fulfilled and he felt quite happy. But then he remembered, that cobbler, he gave me some petals. I promised. I have to keep my word. So then he took those petals out of the bag, and he was just leaving it to them. He was on his way. Just as he was leaving, he heard a sound of drums in the sky. He could hear Gandharvas, celestial beings, singing hymns from the Vedas in the sky. The whole area became illuminated and filled with a nectarian atmosphere. He thought, what's going on? And then he saw a light in the Ganga. And from that light in the Ganga, the hand of a woman rose up out of the water. Just the arm was Mother Ganges herself, the goddess of Ganges, and was reaching out and holding a beautiful jeweled gold and jeweled bangle. So then he was astonished, and he reached out and he took the bangle, and as soon as he touched the bangle in his hand, then the arm disappeared, the music and everything became normal again. So, wow, incredible. So that old man, he said to him, when he gave the flowers, he said, please offer these petals, and if there's any Mahaprasad, right, any remnant from Gandhi, bring me some Mahaprasad from the Gandhi. So then that wealthy businessman, he thought, well, this is really the Ganga Prasad. This is the remnant from this puja. But that old cop, he's old. What will he do then? Better to put this to a good use. So then he traveled all the way back to Rajasthan. Long journey. And he arrived back and he thought, let me give this as a gift to the king. So he went to the palace of the king and said, Your Majesty, as your loyal and obedient subject, I want to present you with this bride, a gift. And he presented the gift to the king. The king was very happy. Thank you. And the king rewarded him by giving him so much land. And also soldiers to protect the land as well. So now he was already very wealthy, but now he became a landholder with his own little private army supported by the king. Because the king felt such gratitude. So the wife of the king, she was a great devotee. You may have heard her name. She's a very famous devotee, Mira. So she was a very great devotee of Krishna, Giridhari Krishna. And she used to worship the deity of Krishna every day, singing the name of Krishna, decorating him with flowers and with ornaments. So her husband thought, oh, well, to please my wife. And he gave this bangle to his wife. So then she's not going to wear it. Of course, whatever she receives which is valuable, she'll give to Krishna. So she took the bangle and she went into the temple room. Krishna was there. She took his flute and then put the bangle on his arm and put his flute back. And Krishna looked so charming, so beautiful, wearing this new bangle. So every day she was going into the temple room and she was singing kirtan and meditating. And then one day in her meditation, Krishna smiled and said, "This bangle is so nice, but I want a matching one for my other hand." Krishna is very tricky. No one can understand what is going on in the mind of Krishna. Krishna said, if I just wear one, it looks kind of asymmetrical. So if you could just get me a matching one, I would appreciate that. So then, she took that bangle and she went to her husband. And she said, my dear Swami, can you get another one of these for my deity? The king said, yes, why not, of course. Give it to me, I'll get a craftsman to make a copy. So then the king called his top jeweler and said, can you make another one of these, please? So then the jeweler, he took the bangle and he examined the jewels. He examined the gold. You know, the purest gold. What is the purest gold? 24 karat. The jeweler said, Your Majesty, where did you get this? I have never seen anything like it. This is not even 24 karat, this is 48 karat gold. I think this gold is not even available in this world. I've never seen anything like it. And these jewels also. I'm afraid I could not create a copy of this. And even if you were to sell your whole kingdom over 7 times, I think you could not pay for this. Where did you get it from? The king said, well, there was that merchant. One merchant. He just gave it to me as a gift. The jeweler said, well, maybe he has the other one. King said, you're right, let's find out. So then the king and his ministers and the jeweler also, they set off and they went to the land holding of that merchant and they approached him and they said, do you have another one of these? He said, no. Well, where did you get it from? He said, well, the truth be told, it was quite a mystical occurrence. My whole life I had a desire to go and worship the Ganga. And so I went there with my whole family and so many priests, and we did this very elaborate puja. And at the end, Mother Ganges, she was so pleased. Her hand came out from the water and she gave me this bangle. The king said, that's amazing. All right, you have to do it again. Get all your priests and all your musicians and all your paraphernalia and half a ton of flowers and big deeps and everything. We have to do it again because I have to get another one, my wife. So then that merchant, he was in a real quandary. He was in a big position. Because then he thought, well, wait a minute. You know, if I go all the way there with the king and his whole cavalry and everyone, and then I do a big puja and nothing happens, then what will happen? It will be a complete disaster for me. I may lose everything. So then he thought, oh, I'm going to have to tell him the truth. He said, well, after I did the puja, then I remembered I had this bag. And there were some flowers, they're all dry, stale, you know, they'd been in my bag for weeks, you know. I offered all these fresh flowers, but I had these old, dry, stale flowers from this old cobbler guy. And he just asked me to offer them on his behalf. Actually, and I just like tossed them in. I was on my way, and then it happened. So the king said, oh really? Well, where does he live? He said, I can take you there. All right. So then that wealthy merchant and his retinue, and the king and his retinue, and his jeweler and everyone, they all set out. And they came to the village of that poor old man. So by now, that poor old man, he was on his deathbed. He could hardly move. And they came to him. He couldn't believe what's going on. This wealthy man has come with all his priests and so many, and the king has come. To what do I owe the pleasure? Please tell me. So I said, do you have one of these spangles? He said, no, I've never seen it before. Where did you get it from? So then they explained, oh, some time before, you gave some petals to me, that merchant said. And I did a big puja, but nothing happened. But when I threw your old stale petals, dry petals, in the Ganga, then the heavens opened. I heard the Gandharvas singing the hymns of the Vedas, and Mother Ganges personally gave me this bangle. And I gave it to the king. Excuse me, I should have given it to you because you said, if there's any prasad after you offer my petals, please give me some prasad of the Ganges. So he apologized. He said, I'm sorry, but I gave it to the king. And the king gave it to his wife. And his wife gave it to Krishna. And Krishna wants the other one. So then the old man, he was crying. The king said, we have to take you to Prayag. And you can offer petals there. The old man said, I will die. On this journey I will die. Just give me some petals. So they put some petals in the hands of the old cobbler. And in his workshop there, a filthy place, there was a vat of water where he was scraping and cleaning the leather. Dirty. And the old man, he came to that water. He said, Om Gange Swaha. Threw the petals in the dirty water. Then they all heard the sound of Gandharvas playing drums. The sky became filled with light. They could hear the singing of the mantras of the Vedas. And from the dirty water, the arm of Mother Ganges came out. With the matching bangle. And gave it to the old man. When he took it, all the music stopped and light, everything disappeared. And the old man, he gave the bangle to the king The king gave to his wife, and his wife gave it to Krishna. Now Krishna looks very nice with two. Krishna was very happy. Why did Krishna do this pastime? Because he wanted to glorify his devotee. And he wanted to show to the whole world, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're old, whether you're poor, whether you have nothing, whether you have less than nothing, whatever qualification or disqualification you have, Krishna doesn't care. Yome bhakta prayachati tadaham bhaktuparitam ashnami prayatatmana. If you can worship Krishna, if you can serve Krishna, you can offer flowers to Krishna, offer yourself to Krishna, offer your voice to Krishna by singing His name with love, then Krishna accepts that. So, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andaka Yaham Krishna Tahan Nari Maya Adika. Krishna is like the sun, and Maya, avidya, ignorance, illusion is like darkness. Wherever there is Krishna, there cannot be any darkness. So simply by the very easy and accessible acts of devotion, of bhakti yoga to see Krishna, all perfection will come. No need to strive even for knowledge. The knowledge will come by itself. No need to grit your teeth and try to be detached and renounced from the world and suppress your desires, which will turn into phobias and you become quite dysfunctional. No, this is all artificial. Everything, what is natural? Take your heart and offer it to Krishna. And all knowledge, all detachment, it will arise automatically by itself. Bole Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki jai, Sanwari ki jai, Jai Jai Sri Ram.